Imagine building a multi-million-dollar state-of-the-art house.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
You spend, like, months perfectly decorating every room, selecting the finest furniture, ensuring every single light switch is in the exact right place. It's flawless.
Like the dream home.
Exactly. But then, a year later, you wake up and the walls are just covered in water damage.
No.
Yeah, because you never hired anyone to maintain the plumbing. I mean, the aesthetic layer looks great, but the pipes behind the walls are bursting.
Which is a complete disaster.
It is. And you've probably experienced something incredibly similar at your own company. You put in the hard hours, you build a shared internal tool or like a library of assets, and there it is, problem solved.
Until it isn't.
Right. You step back a year later, and that beautiful, pristine system is chaotic, fractured, and barely functional.
And the irony is, those systems usually break down specifically because they are successful.
Wait, really? Because of success?
Yeah, broad adoption is exactly what kills an ungoverned system. It is a classic scaling trap where your initial solution morphs into this massive source of friction.
Man, that friction is exactly what we were getting into today. Welcome to this deep dive. We're thrilled you are here with us because today we're looking at a phenomenon that affects, well, almost every single person working in a modern organization.
Oh, true.
We are asking the question, why do shared systems, the very things designed to make our lives infinitely easier, so often collapse under their own weight as a company grows?
And we are pulling our insights today from Tobias Reitenhag. He's the head of design at Intunio.
They're a UX design and development studio, right? Over in Gothenburg, Sweden.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And because they specialize in digital design and technical architecture, they watch this plumbing burst firsthand with their clients constantly.
They really do.
They bring a perspective that aggressively challenges our basic assumptions about what a quote-unquote system actually is in the workplace.
Which brings us to our mission for this deep dive. Our goal today is to explore the hidden organizational machinery required to make shared systems actually function over the long haul.
Because it's really not about the tools themselves.
No, success isn't about having the most pieces in your shared library. It is entirely about how you manage the people using those pieces.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this. A natural starting point for many organizations is simply gathering up all their assets.
Right, they just do an inventory.
Yeah, they collect their brand colors, their typography, their standard UI components, and they just dump them all into a shared library.
Wrap it in a nice bow.
Pretty much. They attach some documentation, maybe some code snippets, and call it a day. And, at first glance, that feels like a massive victory.
Well, it feels like a victory because on a small scale, it actually works perfectly.
It does.
Oh, absolutely. When a system is being used by a single team working on a single product,
Yeah.
the communication loop is instantaneous.
Right, because there's no middleman.
Exactly. The team building the library is the exact same team pulling from the library. If a primary button needs to be blue instead of green, they just change it and move on.
Makes sense.
In a closed, small-scale environment, a single reference guide is genuinely all you need to keep things running smoothly.
It makes me think of a perfectly organized home kitchen.
Okay, I like that.
If it's just you cooking in there, it's a flawless system. You know exactly where your favorite knives are.
Your spices are alphabetized to your liking.
Exactly. And you know which burner on the stove runs a little hot. The environment is entirely adapted to your specific workflow.
It's your domain.
Right. But if you suddenly invite 5 different professional chefs into that exact same kitchen,
Oh boy.
and they are all trying to execute completely different menus at the exact same time, absolute chaos ensues.
I can imagine.
Someone is moving the pans, someone is hoarding all the salt, someone else is demanding you install a deep fryer.
Right, the physical kitchen hasn't changed at all.
Not one bit. But the environment has become totally unmanageable.
What's fascinating here is that chaos is actually the most critical juncture for a growing company.
How so?
Well, those growing pains are not a sign that your system is fundamentally flawed. They are proof of life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they indicate that people actually want to use the resource you've built.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the changing conditions in that kitchen analogy.
Right, all those different chefs.
You have teams moving at drastically different speeds.
Yeah.
You might have one product that is a brand new, highly experimental launch moving at a breakneck pace.
Moving fast and breaking things.
Exactly. And it's sitting right next to a 10-year-old legacy product that prioritizes extreme stability over everything else.
2 totally different mindsets.
Because of those competing life cycles, entirely new needs are continuously colliding.
So how do you handle a legacy app that needs an old layout versus a brand new launch that wants to push the visual boundaries? I mean, that seems like a recipe for constant arguing.
It is, and it immediately forces what are known as boundary questions.
Hmm.
This is where a static library of colors and fonts completely fails you.
Give me an example of a boundary question.
For instance, when a team invents a new feature, is that solution reusable enough to belong in the shared global system? Or does it stay local?
Right. Who decides that?
Exactly. Or if one product team improves a standard component, how do you push that improvement to other teams without breaking their ongoing work?
Yeah, a component library can show you what a button should look like, but it has absolutely no mechanism for deciding who gets to change the button.
None at all.
The library is just a static artifact. But the organization using it is a dynamic, living organism.
Which necessitates a way to manage that dynamic growth.
Yeah.
You have to introduce human infrastructure, the rules of engagement, basically.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Yeah, this brings us directly to a concept that usually gets a bad rap in the tech world: governance.
The G word.
The G word, yes.
Now, if you are listening to this and you spent any time in corporate environments, the word governance probably makes your eye twitch.
Oh, for sure.
It is usually synonymous with endless committee meetings, heavy bureaucracy, massive bottlenecks, and red tape that just stops anyone from actually shipping a product.
It's a scary word.
But Intunio completely reframes it here. They strip away the corporate dread. At its absolute core, governance is simply about making roles and decisions completely transparent in day-to-day work.
It is the antidote to assumptions. When an organization scales, you cannot rely on informal chats by the coffee machine anymore.
Those days are over.
Right. Ownership has to be explicit. Who evaluates a new idea? Who fixes a broken component?
Somebody has to know.
If you don't define those roles, everyone naturally assumes someone else is handling it, and the system rots from neglect.
Let me push back on this, though. A common recommendation, and one echoed in our source material, is establishing a small core team with primary responsibility for the system.
Yes, a centralized group.
Right, a centralized group accountable for quality and direction. Doesn't this just inevitably create that exact bottleneck we all hate?
How do you mean?
Well, you are essentially setting up a design police force, a group of purists who just sit in a room telling product teams what they aren't allowed to do.
Which slows everything down.
Exactly. It completely slows down the company's velocity.
That is the most common pitfall. And avoiding it comes down to how you define their mandate. Listen, this core team is not a police force designed to control every pixel.
Okay, what are they then?
They are stewards. Their job is to ensure the bridge doesn't collapse while traffic is moving over it.
I like that, stewards.
And the secret to keeping them from becoming an isolated ivory tower is their composition. You cannot just put 3 designers in a room and call it a core team.
It needs more variety.
It must be strictly cross-functional. You need development deeply integrated into that group.
Because a design choice directly changes the code base, and a technical limitation directly dictates what can be designed.
Exactly.
Like if a designer proposes this beautiful new shadow effect that takes half a second to render on a mobile device, a developer needs to be there to immediately flag the performance hit.
Precisely. Furthermore, incorporating a product management perspective into that core team is vital.
Why product management?
Well, if the stewards of the system have no visibility into the company's business roadmap, they cannot prepare the infrastructure for what the product teams will need 2 quarters from now.
Oh, they'd just be guessing.
Right. They will always be playing catch-up.
Okay, so if the core team represents the engineers maintaining the bridge, what about the daily commuters driving over it?
You mean the product teams?
Yeah, the product teams. They are where the rubber meets the road. They are dealing with actual user testing, tight deadlines, and unexpected edge cases. This is where the real stress tests happen.
They are the front lines. And if a system doesn't serve the front lines, it's useless.
Completely useless.
This creates the need for a highly functioning contribution model. If the core team owns the system, but the product teams are experiencing the novel problems, there has to be a frictionless pathway for them to communicate.
And if that pathway isn't clear, product teams just go completely rogue.
Oh, every time.
It is like having a suggestion box at your office that feeds directly into a paper shredder.
That is a painful image.
But it happens. If a product team takes the time to say, hey, we desperately need a new calendar dropdown to make our booking app work, and the core team ignores them because it's not on the immediate roadmap.
They're not just going to stop working.
Exactly. That product team still has a Friday deadline. They aren't going to halt their launch. They are just going to build their own local calendar dropdown and bypass the shared system entirely.
And that local bypass is the exact mechanism of a system's death.
Really?
Yeah.
Just from a local bypass?
Yes. If proposals don't connect to a clear, responsive change process, teams solve their problems locally. Fast forward a year, and you have accumulated a massive pile of local variations.
Oh, I see.
You have 20 completely different versions of a calendar dropdown scattered across your company's software. They all behave differently. They all have different bugs.
And the entire value proposition of a shared design system is just wiped out.
Wiped out entirely.
Let's walk through the actual mechanics of stopping that paper shredder pipeline. How does a successful contribution model actually operate when a team hits a wall?
It requires 3 highly visible, non-negotiable steps. Capture, evaluate, and decide.
Capture, evaluate, decide.
Okay. Let's stick with your calendar drop-down scenario. A product team realizes the standard date picker doesn't allow users to select multiple non-consecutive days, which they need for a new travel feature.
A very specific need.
All right. First, there must be a known, effortless way to capture that proposal, not just an email into the void.
Yeah, that's the shredder.
Exactly. It needs to be a specific channel, maybe a dedicated form or a tagged ticket that formally registers the need.
So the idea is officially on the radar. Then comes the evaluation, and I imagine the core team doesn't just look at whether the new calendar design is pretty.
No, not at all. The core team is running a very specific decision calculus.
What are they asking?
They are asking, is this multi-day selection a highly unique edge case only this travel app will ever use? Or is this a universal behavior that our entire ecosystem would benefit from having?
Looking at the big picture.
Yes. They are assessing the technical debt it might introduce, accessibility standards, and how it interacts with other components.
And then comes the decision phase. Here's where it gets really interesting.
It does.
Tobias Reidenhag makes a point that I think completely shifts how we view leadership in these scenarios. He notes that not every proposal becomes a system change.
Right, and they shouldn't.
Exactly. In fact, many shouldn't. But every single proposal must be seen, evaluated, and receive a direct response.
That is the cornerstone of organizational trust. A well-reasoned no is infinitely more valuable than silence.
It's the power of the no.
Yeah.
You can absolutely go back to that product team and say, look, we evaluated your calendar dropdown. It's a great design, but it's too specific to your travel app.
We aren't going to merge it.
Right. We aren't going to merge it into the global system, so keep it as a local component. And you know what? That team doesn't feel slighted.
No, they feel heard.
They got an answer, they understand the rationale, and they can confidently move forward with their local solution without feeling like they are breaking the rules.
When you acknowledge a team's needs, even if it's to reject a global rollout, their willingness to use the rest of the system increases.
Because they trust the process now.
Yes. They feel like active participants in a living ecosystem rather than subjects of a rigid dictatorship. It aligns everyone's expectations.
Okay, so let's say a team gets a yes. The core team decides, you know what, everyone needs this new calendar dropdown. We are making it part of the global system.
A global rollout.
Yeah. But you now face a terrifying new danger. How do you inject this brand new complex component into the foundation without breaking the 20 other applications that are currently running on the old code?
This is where mature systems rely on specific mechanical safeguards. The two most prominent are versioning and release cadence.
Let's break those down because they are critical.
Let's start with versioning. Think of versioning like a video game save file.
Okay, I play some games. I follow.
Imagine you have multiple siblings playing the same massive RPG. If there was only one master save file, every time one sibling leveled up or made a huge change to the world, it would completely overwrite where the other siblings were.
Which would ruin their progress and cause a lot of fights.
Exactly. Versioning creates parallel tracks.
So if the core system is currently on version 1.0 and they build this massive new calendar dropdown, they bundle that into version 2.0.
Correct. The legacy application that doesn't have the budget or time to update its code right now can safely stay on version 1.0.
So it remains perfectly stable.
It does. Meanwhile, the cutting-edge launch team can upgrade to version 2.0 and use the new calendar. Versioning ensures that the core team can aggressively improve the system without terrifying the product teams.
Yeah, the last thing they want is a random Tuesday update crashing their live application.
Exactly. And release cadence partners right alongside that. It's about predictability.
Because if you just randomly push updates whenever you feel like it, product teams can't plan their sprints.
They'd be constantly reacting.
Right. But if they know, okay, the core team releases a new minor version on the first Tuesday of every month, they can build their own work schedules around that rhythm.
Predictability breeds reliability. And reliability is the only metric that keeps engineers and designers coming back to a shared system instead of building from scratch.
Which brings us to the ultimate payoff. We've spent this time dissecting the plumbing governance, contribution models, decision calculus, versioning.
Nuts and bolts.
Yeah. But why should you, the listener, actually care about all this structural effort? Especially if you aren't directly managing a software design system. What is the actual business value of getting this right?
The business value is a radical transformation in efficiency. The organizations that succeed long-term are never the ones that just hired the best visual designers to build the prettiest components.
It's not about being pretty.
No, the systems that survive are the ones where the organization around the system operates flawlessly. The assets themselves are just a byproduct of good communication.
Think about the sheer amount of wasted human capital in a poorly governed company. You might have a senior developer making, say, $150,000 a year, spending 4 hours of their day painstakingly rebuilding a standard modal window or a login screen from scratch.
Simply because they don't trust the shared library won't break their app.
Exactly. Now multiply that 4 hours across 50 developers. The financial bleed is just staggering.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, a governed system eliminates that bleed. When changes are handled structurally, teams reuse proven, accessible, fully tested solutions.
The benefits are huge.
The concrete impacts are immediate. Your end user gets a highly consistent, intuitive experience across all your products.
And your development teams can focus their expensive brain power on solving actual novel business problems rather than reinventing a date picker for the 5th time this year.
That is the true return on investment.
So, what does this all mean? It means I want to challenge you to look closely at your own workplace this week. Think about the shared resources you interact with daily.
They're everywhere once you start looking.
They really are. Maybe you are managing a massive code base, but maybe you are just working out of a shared Google Drive full of marketing templates.
Or a massive Excel tracker for your sales team.
Or a repository of legal contracts. The real work, the factor that determines whether that resource is a massive superpower for your team or a chaotic, disorganized nightmare, is always found in how people agree to use and update the tool.
Not just the tool itself.
Right. If you only focus on creating the content and completely ignore the contribution model of how your team interacts with it, you are building a system that is fundamentally destined to rot.
It requires a complete shift in perspective. You must design the organization around the system with the exact same rigor and care that you applied to designing the system itself.
You can't have one without the other.
Without the human infrastructure, you don't have a system. You just have a pile of files.
Well said. Let's do a quick recap of the journey we've been on today. We started by shattering the illusion of the static library, realizing that a pile of colors, code, and components is never enough to sustain growth.
It's just the starting line.
Exactly. We explored the tipping point, where the chaos of multiple teams colliding is actually a sign of successful adoption, not failure. We saw that a centralized core team isn't a bureaucratic bottleneck, but a cross-functional steward keeping the bridge intact.
A critical distinction.
Then we unpacked the mechanics of the contribution model, learning that a clear, evaluated no is the secret to building organizational trust. And finally, we looked at how safeguards like versioning create the reliability that ultimately unlocks massive business efficiency.
We've seen today that a design system without governance is just a static artifact waiting to become obsolete. It makes you wonder, take a look around your own life or organization.
Yeah, take a really close look.
What other static resources or shared knowledge bases are slowly falling apart right now, creating hidden friction every single day, simply because no one bothered to establish a clear human model for how to update them?
It's an incredible question to take back to your own team and a great place to start fixing the plumbing. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, stay curious, and the next time you look at a shared library or step into a perfectly organized kitchen, remember to take a closer look at the hidden human systems running right beneath the surface. We'll catch you next time.